Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Coffee with Kittl. I'm super excited. Today we have one of our amazing collaborators, Heather, which by the way, you can find all of her stuff down below. I've got her YouTube channel linked down below for you to visit. And today we're talking about Etsy. The holidays are coming up, so that's a big key thing to keep in your mind, as well as just all year round. There's just so many capabilities, opportunities on Etsy. And we have one of the Etsy masters here about to talk to us about it. So before we dive right into like tips and things to know about, Heather, why don't you just talk a little bit about who you are so our audience gets a better picture of you and kind of what you do.
Yeah, thank you for having me on Kittl's YouTube channel. First of all, it's really great working with Kittl. It's amazing design software all around. But as far as me, I'm Heather from Heather Studio on YouTube. I have grown an Etsy and print-on-demand business to multiple six figures in the past 2 years on Etsy, and so now I teach how to grow an Etsy store on my own YouTube channel. I have a TikTok, Instagram. I've been trying to be on all the platforms lately, and I teach design videos. I have a few videos out with how to use Kittl and how to create some really neat designs for Q4. So if you're looking for some last minute design inspiration, that's one of the videos I have on my channel as well. But that's about it for who I am and what I kind of am doing on the YouTube platform right now. So
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's just amazing. Like I was telling you already before we were talking, and like I've heard podcasts with you and just hearing about your kind of your whole story from what you were doing before you started Etsy. And then I think you may have mentioned that you actually started and then did you stop for a while and then start back up again? What was is that kind of like a common thing that maybe people are tempted to do? Like, this isn't working, I'm just going to stop. And then like, what made you kind of like pick it back up?
yeah, so in 2020, I was working at a hospital as an MRI technologist, and a lot of us in the radiology departments at the hospital, and this happened across multiple hospitals, and a lot of us were cut hours because they were funding nursing at the time during the pandemic. And so my department got cut in half, and I still had my hours. I just had like half the hours that I usually had. And I was working full time. So I was getting, paid part-time hours at that time. And I just closed on my first home at the same time that I got cut hours in half. So I was like, oh, I need to pay bills somehow. And I stumbled across a few YouTube videos online talking about print on demand and Etsy. So I decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to try my hand at this. I tried it and I had a few sales come through. Then during the pandemic, since a lot of the print on demand providers were working overtime, they had way too many orders coming in for how many people they had staffed, how much stock and inventory they had, that a lot of items were getting shipped out within 4 weeks to 6 weeks. And I got scared. I was like, oh, my items aren't going to ship to these customers in time. So I was like, I don't want bad reviews when I first start a store. So I'm just going to stop this. This is just a sign to me. It's not my time. So I stopped. And then that whole year in 2020, I was like, my hours came back full time. And I was like, man, I'm still sad, even though I'm like happy I have my hours back. And I was getting overtime. So I was kind of making up for the hours lost earlier in the year. But I was just so sad for some reason. And I realized I had a taste of what print on demand was, what being like a business owner was, being my own boss. And I was like, man, I want to go back into that. So in 2021, in January, I was like, okay, I'm going to just go all in on this. So I started posting. I think I posted like 100 listings in January. I didn't get any sales the first few weeks of January. Then the last week of January, I got one sale. The next month, I think I got around 30 sales. And then after that, I started getting a few hundred sales every single month. By the end of 2021, I earned about, I think it was 250K in revenue in one year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a gross take home profit of 100K. and I had never seen six figures in my
Yeah.
entire life. Like
Wow.
that was the first time ever I like tripled my income because I was still working at the hospital. I went down to part-time in November because that's when quarter 4, it gets so crazy with all the sales coming in, and
Yeah.
being a print on demand business owner, you're wearing all the hats with customer service and
The
um,
chat and the native where they can message you, right? And Etsy. Yeah.
yeah. So, and then now I'm at 400K in revenue. So it's really cool
Goodness.
that I started this thing and I've seen like a full-time income ever since I started in 2021. So I'm really grateful for
Wow.
getting back into it and not stopping. So,
Yeah, I mean, the whole story is like, I'm sure there's just so many others that are kind of will follow in that, or they've had that kind of deal before, and even like I had a full-time job. We didn't actually get, but this was before Kittl. I mean, I have a full-time job now, but
yeah.
before Kittl, we didn't have like cut back hours, but it sounds about around the same period that you're talking about, we had like a pay reduction to keep everyone on. So I mean, obviously we were grateful for that. It's not like just 50 of us got laid off or something like that. So, but it was in that time I was like, where you kind of went with Etsy, I was like, I want to start YouTube,
Mhm.
because I had found this channel called Think Media where Sean Cannell is there, and he's like giving all these tips and advice, and his energy is just like intoxicating pretty much. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do YouTube. Honestly, that's how I'm here now. Just a little YouTube channel, just going at it. You said you did 100 listings on Etsy. I was just trying to do like 2 videos a week, just boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
And honestly, that's how it's led to here doing this interview with you, which is truly amazing. And so hopefully what everybody is hearing is like, just to be encouraged if you're in this same kind of situation. Obviously, like 2020 is behind us, hopefully for forever.
Yeah.
But the point is, if you started something and you're scared and you stopped it, like maybe just give it a little try, go at it a little at a time. It's a marathon, not a sprint type deal. You know what I mean? It's not like, let me pop these 15 things on Etsy, kick back, and then like you get 100 sales the next month. It took you 100 listings. And I've actually heard that from several people, like several podcasts, YouTube videos. They're like, get to 100 as much as possible. So, I mean, so you think that is the key number? And I'm assuming you weren't doing like, I don't think you were going for quantity over quality, right? These were thought
Mhm.
out things. It's not just like 20, 50, 70, 100, boom, I've got 100. Let's see what happens, right? So you think that's kind of like, that is the magic number, right?
Yeah, I think it is for just experience. I think a lot of people, like when they hear, I guess a lot of us YouTube gurus saying, "Oh, make sure you post so many listings," and it's
Right.
really like you said, like it's not quantity over quality. It's just experience. You're building up that experience. You're learning what works, what doesn't work. You're doing your own market research, and I think that's the thing people try to skip out on is, oh, my first listing is going to be that bestseller. And it
Mm.
really is never that way. It's,
Yep.
I mean, some people, they post one and it's like, wow, that's an amazing one. But for,
Yeah.
most of us, it's trial and error. And we're posting all these listings. And then eventually, you find that one that sells and you're like, oh, there's a demand for this
For
type
this
of item.
topic. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think once you kind of get a taste for that and it's like, okay, I know what's selling now, I'm
Mm.
just going to double down on that. And then you can create more listings. And if you have that design that's selling too, it's really a whole culmination of things like your niche, the product, and then the design. They all have to work together to get that bestseller. So,
Yeah, I mean, that absolutely makes sense. And like, I was thinking maybe there's just so many things we could talk about with Etsy, but I'm trying to like, consolidate to like, what are the top 5? If somebody's gonna start this and they're like, I just want 5 things. Let me just start with these 5 things. I think we can kind of say, number one is, or one of the things, not like the top thing, but the first thing is like, let's make sure we know what we're doing, like with our topic and our niche, and let's not like go for quantity over quality. And so in
mm,
this kind of first point or first topic that we've been talking about, which is like it takes a little bit of trial and error to get to the topic or the niche that you think that there's a demand for. What did you do in the beginning to start just posting these listings? I mean, obviously you had this goal. You're like, I'm going to do January, we're going to get to 100. But what did you do to like decide what the topic or the niche or the whatever it is? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So I started with just looking at what was already selling. And I know that's like the generic answer a lot of people give, but I think that I went on the Etsy search and I just took a really long time on the Etsy search.
Okay.
And even when you like type in the search bar, if you put gift for, and then you just stop it there,
Okay.
Etsy will populate like gift for mom, gift for dad, gift for blah, blah, blah. And you can kind of see what's popular and what's trending just by looking at the search bar. Another way is doing like looking at, if you click into those search bar categories and you look at what the best sellers are and you click into those stores that are really selling, you'll see 10,000, 50,000 sales on those stores. That's what I was looking at. I was looking at all of the niches they were in. If it showed, if it was over 20 in cart on certain items, that gave a good indicator to me that there was high demand for those types of categories. And then I started just designing for those categories and seeing if I could rank. So that's kind of what I did when I first began.
Yeah, I really like, because I think when people hear this tip, like you said, where it's like, just look at what the top seller is, like things are. And hey, that's like a big, that's almost like a big YouTube trick too. Like, go look at the biggest channels, like copy what they do, right? Success leaves clues, and it does. But what you're saying is almost more specific, because like everybody, what she's saying is not, don't go type in like shirt, hit enter, and then go to like best selling on Etsy, because then you just have the top selling shirts, which you could go that way. But what you're saying is like, give it a little bit of juice. You're saying gift for, and then let the search result like filter you, or like, whatever topic, like, retro lettering, and then let it finish, right? It could be a shirt, could be a mug, could be whatever. You're kind of suggesting that kind of thing, right? Not necessarily like the product, hit enter, and then see what happens.
Yeah, I think Etsy is just such a gift giving platform. And once you get into the mindset of, okay, what types of gifts are people searching for? I think I read some statistics somewhere. I don't know if it was Etsy that provided the statistic, but I know that I read it somewhere that Etsy is a gift giving platform. Like, that's one of their number one like search terms on Etsy. So for me, I'm like, okay, if Etsy is a number one gift giving platform, then I need to get in the mindset of someone looking to buy something for someone else, rather than, hey, what am I going to buy for myself? Because a lot of people aren't going on Etsy necessarily for that. I mean, there are a lot of people that will be, but the majority of their audience is going to be for gifts. So
okay, yeah, and something maybe like at the individual level is like stickers, something they just want to like for themselves. Like, I would go on and like find really specific stickers that you're not going to find in Walmart or something, but most use case scenario is someone going to shop for someone else. So that's really, really good advice, to try to get outside of yourself and not necessarily think, I'm making what I would want to buy for myself. You know what I mean? And we're following along with these other topics, or, maybe trends, because trends kind of come and go, and things can be trending, which I think is different than a trend. So we definitely want to look at those trending things on Etsy. So what would be your second like most vital point to think about? So we kind of set this up as like, how do we get started? Where are we going to look for, the success leaves clues? What's your kind of second point for those either getting started, or maybe they've even been on there and they just don't know what they're doing, basically?
Yeah. I think it's about passion. Like, I'd say the second thing is like, I guess it's kind of a confusing one, but like finding what people are passionate about. And that's usually in the niches, which I know it's kind of a controversy on how to pronounce niche. I get it on my channel all the time. I have a lot of commenters that write
hilarious.
Neesh. Like
Wow.
people just write that.
Or
Which I think,
niche. It's either
yeah,
niche or niche, right? It's
yeah,
like one of the two.
yeah. I always think it's funny when people comment niche, like they're like, oh, all the niches Heather's talking about. I just get a kick out of that. But I think it comes down to what people are passionate about. And that's what I try to say, like in my YouTube videos, is like the niche is really where it's at, because if people aren't passionate about it, like if you're buying for yourself or for someone else, like if you think of a gift right now for like your mom or dad, and you know they're like a huge dog lover, you're like, oh, they're really passionate about dogs, and the dog niche is, it's niche in its own. So I think it's just about passion too, like finding those places where passion really lies. And that goes into, what we just talked about what is in high demand too, that we can research on Etsy search or on Etsy stores. So, and a lot of the times you'll find the passion in the niches that you're looking at. So,
Yeah, and it's kind of like bridging the two things, right? So we have this passion mixed with what is actually doing well, right? Because it's great if you have tons and tons of passion, but if you have tons of passion about a thing that no one else cares about, it could like, you're kind of stuck doing something that's not going to sell. But I think there is ways, right, to take, and this kind of goes into, don't get scared of like how you do things or your style or what you're going to sell if those things are coming together, right? What you're passionate about along with the niche that's like performing well, you can really make something beautiful, and then you can go and you can do it in your own style. Now, one question that I kind of have is like, would you suggest, I know you can create collections or right, I think on Etsy, I think they're called collections or groups or whatever. Would you say, like, I guess morally, like a morally question, like how much do you go outside of your style, so to speak, to kind of lightly compete with the top selling, best selling things in the style that is going to sell, while also kind of staying true to like for me, it's vintage all the time. It's very old retro. I do a lot of like Christian vintage things. So I'm trying to combine that niche, which is not super in high demand. But like, that's the style that I like to stay within. But yeah, so what do you think about like how far out do you go, and or do you think it's a good idea to like kind of do some stuff in the style that is gonna sell?
Yeah, I think this is a valid question and a really great question. And I also wanted to say, not to distract, I'll go back to this, but my bookshelf, I think, is the same bookshelf you have.
Yes, I think I got it on Amazon.
Yeah, I got mine on it.
Yeah, and it's got the tiered, and it's like fake wood. It's it's like vinyl or something, like vinyl planked wood.
Yeah, and is that a BB-8 from Disney? Yeah. I have one. Yeah, I have one too. I have a black one. I won't get up right now, but I have a black one I made from the Disney workshops. I wish I had it in the back because that'd be hilarious. But
that's awesome. Yeah, this one is a Lego set. It's actually,
wow.
It actually works. I can get it, show you later, but you can turn it and the Lego pieces open up and the head moves. It was like $150, something stupid.
Same.
Yeah, but it's cool. Yeah, I've got a couple of Star Wars things here, some Harry Potter stuff. I'm a big nerd. So.
Yeah, I have Harry Potter. Those are the Harry Potter books me and my fiance both read as kids.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the illustrated ones here, and then the vault here, where it basically goes into how they did each movie or whatever.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
We're just nerding out here.
Yeah. I guess after this, when we get off the recording.
Yeah, we'll do a big nerd session.
Yeah, but I think it's good to kind of branch out, and especially when you're starting as a beginner. I feel like, at least for me and my experiences when I began on Etsy and designing, it was a moment of, okay, what is my design style? Because I don't know it yet. And I need to get there. And I just remember I was taking a lot of inspiration from multiple different types of stores that were doing well. And I saw they all had their own design styles. And I was just kind of seeing what was working for them, the fonts they were using, the types of, maybe they curved, a line of text, or, like overlaid a text on another text. So I was trying to take inspiration without copying anyone directly. I would always just kind of see the fonts that other people were doing, take a little bit of that. Then I would take maybe a color palette that I saw that really was nice, or create my own color palette. And then over time, I kind of developed my own style. But now that I have my own style, I'm seeing the same thing happen with my store to other people's stores, where some people kind of get too close for comfort, where it's like, okay, they did the exact same niche, the exact same design on their own items, which, it's kind of tough, because it's like, okay, I took inspiration from other stores and now people are doing the same, which is a good thing. It means I'm doing well. But so going out of my comfort zone with styles, sometimes I go a little bit away. I'm in the process of kind of just recreating my design style, because now it's kind of like my store has been leading a certain design style. So now that it's more saturated in that design style, it's kind of like, okay, I have to step out of my comfort zone again and figure out a different
And
design
do
style.
something else almost, or add something, right?
Yeah, yep. So now I'm kind of looking at what's trending now, but I want to create my own version of that. So, and I mean, I feel like right now, like you said, vintage, that's really kind of in, retro type of designs.
All the
Those are
time, it
really in.
seems like all the
Yeah.
time.
Yep. And that's where I'm kind of, I have, like, one of my design trends was the retro trend. And I started doing that. And then I saw, hundreds of stores pop up with, like, basically the same design templates I was making. And I was like,
Okay.
okay, that's, it's fair. It's a trendy thing right now. And I was lucky I was at the beginning of that trend, though. So that's where
Absolutely.
I saw a lot of bestsellers and things like that. But now it's very saturated, in that design style. So that's where I'm kind of like, okay, what's going to be the next design trend coming out? And,
Yeah.
how can you lead that too and be different? So,
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of tough, right? The people having designs very similar to yours, and that's happening already a lot with people using Kittl, right? Because they're either using the template verbatim, which we've started to kind of put some things in motion, like we're telling our creators that are making templates, misspell words on purpose, don't do a full name, do like stock, like your name here or whatever, so that they kind of have to change it. Because I mean, yes, in our licensing with Kittl, and this is just one example, not to get off Etsy, but it's just one example, you can absolutely use the template as it is. So anybody that publishes a template, it's not public domain, but it's public Kittl domain. Like, once you've published it, it's there for everyone to see and use. Now, come on, don't just download the template, which a lot of people are doing, and they're just posting on everything. And now we have, I think the other week, somebody sent me like 8 listings that were the exact same template and the same color and the same text and everything. And it's like, hey, those guys are all just going to flag each other, and it's just a race to see who can get it first. So, I get it, but like, it can be tough if you're using fonts that everybody else can buy. If you're using assets, maybe on Kittl or Canva or wherever, that everybody can access, like, then the struggle is like, okay, I will see your identical design, and now I will do something else with the same style and trend. Like, I get it. And there's some people going to be watching this maybe that don't care so much about style. They're just like, I want to make sales. Like, I'm just going to do all of the things that are like trending and whatever. And like, that's fine. You can probably do that and rank, I'm sure. But there are other, more, I guess, in the creative mind, where they're like, no, I want things to look the part. I want it to be kind of in my style. And that's kind of maybe who we're talking to, is where the way you described it is almost like a buffet where you're like, go and you're going to take the fonts from this design that's trending really well. You're going to take the niche from this design that's selling really well and the product from, and then you put it all together and you can package this really cool type thing, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of what I've seen, at least in the past in previous bestsellers, is the people who create their own design trend will be the next bestseller. And
Okay.
I mean, at least from what I've seen, and yes, you could take some elements of previous bestsellers, but I've seen the people who kind of do different than the rest, that those are the ones that, customers will see and they'll be like, oh, wow, this is different. This is very nice. And, those are the ones that are going to keep selling over time, at least from what I've seen. Even my few designs I made that got kind of copied over time, those are still, number one on page one, which is nice. It's more saturated now. There's less sales for those designs due to the saturation, but it's still a bestseller. It's still, one design I made last year. I think I looked recently and that one design earned like $30,000 on just that one design alone.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that was, like I said, one of the first, like that was a leading design, and, it was cool. It was really cool because, I did something that was different from the rest, and that's what showed on Etsy. Customers really liked it because it was different. And that's why, what you said with Kittl is, yes, everyone could take the same design that's working, but you're going to do yourself a disservice because you might see a bestseller, maybe, but you got to be different nowadays. And, the market is like, certain designs are so saturated. And I'm sure those people who are doing the same design templates on Kittl, they're seeing that and they might be, saying, hey, why am I not getting any sales? But so-and-so is getting sales on the same exact design. And that's usually why it's saturated, because 8 people are doing the same. So
how can you take that and tweak it, change it in your own kind of way, and still have success? So I think it's a lot of what you're saying, and just being able to look at a ton of different things, and try to be able to do something a little bit different. Now, kind of as we move into like a fourth point, I want to talk about listings themselves. Now we're not so much talking about, I guess, how to get on page one, or like how to have like 100 products, so to speak. Like the listing itself, and I kind of have some thoughts because I've been listening to lots of podcasts and lots of YouTube videos, and I've watched your YouTube videos. Like, what will make a listing stand out? And I think this can really help some people, especially if they are doing a very similar style. If it's a retro lettered t-shirt or something, what can we do to make the listing like better, like stand out basically on that digital shelf? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think really it comes down to your image mockups. And I know it sounds like really simple, but just finding those higher quality image mockups can go such a long way, just to show that, like, hey, this is how this design looks on a product. And even when the customer clicks into it, having a few different high quality image mockups. I've seen some stores, and I've done, hundreds of shop reviews now, and the shops that have kind of been having issues, I've noticed, is their image mockups, inconsistency of the design placement on the image mockups. I've seen people who, on the first main mockup image and thumbnail image, it's really nice. It's placed perfectly, in the center of the t-shirt or sweatshirt. And then you click into it, and the next image mockup, the design's like way down or it's way up, to the collar line. And I think that's one issue I've seen, is just consistency. And then making sure that, if you're going to have other listings and other maybe niche types with the same design, making sure that's consistent too, and maybe using the same mockup or playing around with different mockups and seeing what people are clicking into. Because I think the image mockup is really what at least for my store, has been really selling it. I feel like if I didn't have image mockups I did, then I probably wouldn't have had as many sales, because if I use, the mockups with the blank white backgrounds, that works for Amazon, but Etsy is a little bit different of a ball game. So it's just where the mockups are at is where you'll kind of stand out from the crowd.
So there's going to be, an audience that doesn't care because they're going to go to the Etsy listing and it's the coder meme graphic that they want. Doesn't matter if the background's white. However, there's this other audience like me and you probably that is so worn out by the stock mock-up image that Printful or Printify or Awkward Styles or whatever shoots out to you. They're so numb to that, to where it's like when you type in retro band t-shirt design and the page results come up, you see white, really nice, really nice, really nice, white, really nice, white, really nice, really nice. They're not looking at the white, right? Because they're looking at the t-shirt of an actual person in a picture doing something. Maybe it's active, maybe they're on a hike, or if it's like, if it's a cutting board or something, that cutting board is a really nice flat lay with like ingredients and a knife or something. It's not just a cutting board in the mid floating with a white background behind it. You know what I mean? So I think that's absolutely like it's almost like a component that you have to do. Maybe not at the beginning. Like I did start an Etsy like a couple weeks ago just because I want to go at it. If I'm going to talk about it, I want to be able to like understand what's happening, go in, see what's in a listing. I have some that are still in that white, whatever block, but I'm trying to get some out, and then I'm going to go back and replace all those images. What I'm thinking, this is just kind of like a personal question, but maybe be helpful. I just recently subscribed to Place It because I think that they have a great, like every time you're talking about like, sometimes it's in the middle, the design's in the middle of the t-shirt, then you click in, you go to another one, it's like way down or way up. That's insane. Place It's really great because like you could use the same image and change the shirt and that design doesn't change. Like somehow they've figured it out online to be able to do a mock-up that's really nice. I was doing them all in Photoshop, but you have to be super precise. You have to know how to use Photoshop. But there are other options. There's like yellow page mockups. There's like Place It. There's all this kind of stuff. When you have a listing, and I was thinking about this the other day because I posted a hoodie that I was like, I'm going to do 3 colors. I don't want to do 8 colors because then I got to worry if one goes out of stock or something. When you're doing mockups, I've seen some forums and some people where they'll get one and they're like, it's not the same color as it was in the picture, because it's like, how would we know like that the supplier, again, we're talking about POD drop shipping. I mean, you can print them yourself, I guess, if you want, but like the drop shipper is sending one that's maybe not so close. Like in your experience, what are you doing to try to get, if it's a sweater, let's just say it's a sweater, how are you doing mock-ups showing different colors? Like, are you just color dropping and making sure that it's like as accurate as possible because they can select blue, orange, whatever, you know what I mean? Like that's like in the back of my head, I'm like a little afraid because while the stock mockups kind of are garbage, like they're accurate color wise. Like how do you tackle that?
So for me, I had to order samples online because I needed to see it in person to accurately reflect it in my images. But I've stuck to just purchasing from mockup shops on Etsy because I found those are more reliable, but I have used Place It in the past. I think they are really great. They even have video mock-up images, now.
It's wild.
Yeah. And I think that's really great, especially if you're posting on social media for your shop, and then also Etsy. And if you go to Pinterest, I always mispronounce that word. And so with that being said, I think Place It's good in its own way, but as far as color accuracy, you really have to know the colors on Place It, because then you'll just, like you select the color swatch and all that. So I've stuck to Etsy, but I will say not all mock-up stores on Etsy are the true color. A lot of them, they edit their pictures. And that has been Yeah, that's been an issue in the past. So I had a customer who received a t-shirt that was totally different from the mock-up image color. And it was the color Heather Mint with Bell on Canvas 3001. And that color, depending on different lighting, it just looks so different. And that was one of my favorite colors
Mm.
when I was like looking at, all the colors Bell on Canvas offered, and come to find out it's probably one of the worst colors to like image,
Oh, oh
for
wow. Okay.
an image mock-up, at least to accurately depict it on how it's going to send to the customer. It's a really beautiful color in person though, but
Okay.
some of the image mock-ups I saw were like a deeper shade of blue, almost like a teal looking color, and it's like a very light, like turquoise almost.
Or a sea green, maybe something like
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yep. And so the customer, asked for a refund, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know, it looked so different." So I took down that mock-up, and I got a mock-up that was more accurate, and I ordered, just to see for myself how
To
it
see
looked
it.
in person. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the tough part with the image mock-ups, is being accurate, but also having a high quality image mock-up that
Mm.
people like really love, and they're willing
Yeah.
to buy because it just looks so nice. So
Yeah, and not trying to necessarily break the bank with samples, because a lot of them aren't. Some are free, I think, but like Printful, for example, you get, depending on how many sales you make, they kind of play a game with you where it's like the more sales you get, the more mock-ups. So one month I had a lot of sales, and I was able to order like 12 proofs for like 30% off or something like
oh
that.
wow.
So they play this little sales game with you. Whereas I think with Printify, I think you can just order them as you want, but you just pay a discounted price or something. So obviously, if you can get that thing in person and like put it on a hanger and make it look nice, obviously not everybody has a professional camera, but it'll give your eye the best color choice, right? For at least for clothing, I would say that's how you're going to stand out, is the mock-up image or the thumbnail image, especially the thumbnail image. I mean,
Hmm.
don't try to put the best image in the back, like the last 8 pictures of your whole listing. And my brother even said it to me the other day when he was looking for a font or something on Creative Market. He was like, man, this font is great, it's cool, it's not exactly what I thought, but like the mock-up image in the front was just so good, it made me buy, like, because it's a nice flat lay and the font is like, looks realistic, all this stuff. He's like, that triggered a response in his mind where he was like, I can make something that beautiful, right?
Hmm.
People have that same kind of gut reaction, like that. I see how this person is wearing this sweater in this situation in the
Yeah.
coffee shop or whatever, and they're like, I want that to be me.
Yep.
Now, if we just briefly go into the kind of technical side, because there is this technical side, and I was overwhelmed when I did my first listing, I think a month and a half ago, because it walks you through this whole onboarding thing, and you're like, this is nuts. There is a lot on that page. There's a lot of fields. Some you don't have to fill out. Obviously, you need your title or your description, whatever. Like,
Hmm.
just what's the key advice for the kind of back end thing? Because I have seen, and we've actually helped some people with using Kittl and doing stuff. We did some channel reviews, some shop reviews the other week. What's your top advice for the technical kind of side of Etsy? Because it still works like a search engine in that way.
Yeah. I think as far as we're talking, I guess SEO and
Right. Okay. Yeah.
like attributes and things like that, I think just using the max characters in the title, in the tags, I believe it's max of 13 tags, making sure that you're filling in your description with keywords. So it, it's we're in that time where there is a lot of keyword stuffing, and I've heard, a lot of previous customers, they kind of get confused too, where they're like, oh, why does this description say sweatshirt, hoodie? Am I getting a sweatshirt or a hoodie? And
Oh yeah. Yeah.
things like that. So that's where we're just in that zone of keyword stuffing, unfortunately, for SEO. So using the max amount of keywords that you can in the title, in the tags, in the description, going narrow and then also going broad, because you can kind of pull your narrow keywords into the broad categories in the Etsy algorithm and search. So I think just like a mix of all of the above, but just making sure you're maxing out all of your characters, all of basically the chances that you have at being seen in the Etsy algorithm. I guess that's my advice on the technical side.
Yeah, and I would say that, like, at least for me, I'm sometimes afraid that like the title's so big because I'm so trained for YouTube, because
Hmm.
you don't want it to be too long, because then TubeBuddy and vidIQ will yell at you and they're like, your title's too long. You know what I mean? Sometimes it works, right? If you're it's a banger title.
Yeah.
But in Etsy, so I was trying to play that game, and I'm trying to I'm like 6, 7, 8 words is like pretty long. Like, that's long enough. But it's like, no, sometimes when I look at these listings, it's like, retro t-shirt for men, comma, lettering t-shirt for women, comma. Like, they're just
Yep.
putting, like, it's the whole earth. The whole earth can have this t-shirt.
Yeah.
Like, so that's kind of what I'm struggling with. But you're saying, like, no, go ahead and use all the characters, and that makes sense, right? Because it would give someone the most accurate search result, right?
Yeah, it almost acts as like it. I like to compare it to entering into the lottery and picking all of your numbers. It's like, let me just get a bunch of numbers and throw them into a title. And unfortunately, like that's just how Etsy is structured right now. Like I
Okay.
feel like no one has like questioned Etsy on this. I don't know. For me, like I think it's so funny that we're at this place where we're doing like these keyword stuffing in your titles, because it is kind of
Yeah.
like frustrating to customers because they might look at your listing and be like, "Oh, why does it say t-shirt, shirt, tee, and then, sweatshirt thrown in?" Like it
At the
or
end.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things right now. SEO, search engine optimization, it's always changing. Like, with YouTube,
Yeah, absolutely.
we don't know what's going to be next year. We might be title stuffing next year for YouTube. Who
Yeah.
knows? But
Who knows?
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, are there other, would you think for these titles and things, and, the description, which is kind of hidden in Etsy, it's almost like they would make that story a little bit more prominent, but it's like
mhm.
kind of below for whatever reason. Like with the titles, like, are you pretty much just kind of using Etsy to give you context clues for what to use, or are you using another software maybe, or you just type it in on Google? Because Google's are great, honestly.
Yeah.
SEO, so you just type in on Google and get ideas there.
Yep. So I like using, I'll use some research tools. So like Everbee, eRank. I like just using Etsy too. I feel like,
Yeah.
looking at the top performers, I like to pick and choose some like long tail keyword phrases. For anyone who doesn't know, long tail keyword phrases is 3+ keywords in one phrase.
Okay.
I've noticed those are just what's really doing well as far as search engine optimization right now on Etsy. So, like Mother's Day gift for mom. I know that's like very redundant and repetitive, but like that would be an example of a long tail keyword phrase. So just kind of picking and choosing those in
Yeah.
bestseller Etsy listings. I like to do that. And then I find the bestsellers and the ones that are really selling with Everbee. Like I'll populate the search and I'll see like, okay, this listing's making 10K a month. That
Oh, yeah.
shows me, like that's doing well. I'm going to take those titles
Yeah. Okay.
or like phrases from those titles and kind of, swap them out. So,
Yeah, that makes total sense. I've actually never heard of Everbee before, so I have to look into that for sure.
mhm.
So last two things I kind of want to talk about are, before we talk a little bit about how Kittl can kind of help in this, which I think it really can.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier, kind of finishing out the year, Q4, and even going into the new year. Would you provide the same advice that you kind of just said about keywords and titles for products? Because obviously some products are going to be extremely niche, and there's an audience for custom D&D dice in
Yeah.
crystal blue with a dragon on one or whatever. I'm getting a little too nerdy here.
Yeah.
But like, Yeah, always in the back of my mind, and I'm sure in other people's minds, either starting Etsy or whatever, or like, I'm gonna do t-shirts and sweaters, and it's like, oh, but maybe tote bags are bangers right now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what do you kind of decide slash have seen as we start the turn into the new year? What product wise we should be doing, or is it just everything?
I'd say it's kind of a mix. Uh, I don't want to be too vague because I personally appreciate when YouTubers are not vague, but I
Yeah,
feel I feel like everything that has sold will sell again. It's just like the natural cycle of Etsy. And
yeah,
Etsy does cycle out like a lot of new listings, like, older sellers, their listings are kind of fading and not being bestsellers anymore. I've seen a lot of listings. One of the reasons why I like using the Everbee tool is because it shows like how old the best-selling listings are, and a lot of them
oh,
are,
interesting.
yeah, a lot of them are under 12 months. So a lot of the newer
Wow.
listings coming in are actually going above the older listings. And this is what I've seen with my own listings, that it's kind of like, okay, I need to create a new design style and just use the same niches, the same SEO, just with a new design. So, and for me,
Okay.
that's t-shirts, sweatshirts as products. But as we go into the new year, as we go into, I feel like the economy is a little bit rocky right now. I feel like
Mm,
what's really important to emphasize on for 2023 is doing personalization items. I
mm,
feel like that is just a really great item anytime, like
yeah.
personalization, like socks or something like that.
Or
Um,
mugs. We just did a
yeah,
video with Kittl on how to create this template to do customizable mugs. That's a perfect example.
yeah, and I think like we're kind of going into in this next portion here about how to use Kittl. With
Mm,
Kittl, you have all these design templates, and you can make that into personalization templates where, you put your design here and maybe like the round part, and then here in the middle, or your name here, something like that, and then you upload that on a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, a hoodie, a mug, any type of item just for personalization. I feel like, even during economic downturn, things like that, people are still looking for gifts,
yeah.
and personalization is usually a number one like top seller on Etsy.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
at least from what I've seen. I personally try not to do personalization because I'm in the print on demand model.
And it takes time.
Yeah, yeah, it takes a lot of time, and having, a YouTube channel, and then also
Mm,
like I'm coaching students on the side, like it's a lot, and me doing
yeah.
personalization on top of that. That's one reason I wouldn't, but I tell my students to, because I'm like, okay, if you have the time for
If
this,
you've got
which,
the time.
yeah, like if you want to make this serious, like personalization is going to be where it's at, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And for anybody kind of like, what are you talking about? Because maybe someone's never even ordered a personalization item. I
Yeah.
mean, it is really neat, and Etsy is one of the most obvious options to do this for gifts. Is where
Mhm.
you can purchase, like one of our shout out to Julian and our customer support, because um, he just did like a personalized cookbook, and
Cool.
it's there where you can put the name of the family, and he's already had success. Like, he posted that, and I think 2 or 3 days he already had some sales. And that's an example where, you could just get, I'm sure you can search on Etsy. If you can think it, it's probably there, where you can
Mhm.
just put like ye old ideas, cook ideas or whatever. And that's just the book. You can get the notebook for your recipes. But if you take that a step further and you put the cookbook of whatever family, or the mug that you can put your name or your monogram or whatever, or a tumbler, I'm sure that's a big one, like a tumbler,
Mhm.
or a backpack, or anything you can put a monogram on. When you go to that listing, you can click it, and then you'll be able to type in for the seller, then, right, to basically, I guess, mock up for you, essentially. Like, you got to send them what it looks like. And so it doesn't immediately start the POD process where they've submitted it, and then Printful or whatever is like, hey, we're shipping your item. Like, it comes to you first, which is good. You don't want to sell blank or something. But then what
Yeah.
you're talking about with the time aspect is, you have to get that in, you have to look at it, you go back to the template, edit the template. That part's easy. And you
Mhm.
got to make it look like it's supposed to look like for the viewer, which you can still do in your PODs. When you submit it, it'll show you a proof. You got to get the okay from the client, or yeah, but at this
Yep.
time they almost become a client, not necessarily a customer. Almost, they
Mhm.
send it back. You go back into your POD, and then you send it. So I kind of made it sound a little bit daunting and scary. It's not for anybody that wants to make sales, because you heard Heather just say it's a bestseller.
Mhm.
But it takes a little bit more time than me putting Grace on a hat, listing it, and then I can just make sales all day long. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? You have to decide, right, whether you have the time to do that, and like, speaking of other things that Kittl can really help with, I think, in this space, like, what kind of comes to your mind? Like, what would be the strengths of using Kittl for making something like Etsy products, especially with drop shipping, POD, all that kind of stuff, and how have you kind of used it?
Yeah, I think just the design templates alone, like I was really impressed. And this is one of the reasons why I was really drawn to Kittl when your company first reached out and I started speaking with some Kittl staff. I started playing with the design templates. I was like, oh, okay, let me, try Kittl out.
Yep.
And I just remember I took one of the design templates and I just put in like, I changed it to soccer team or something,
Mhm.
and I took like a graphic from Kittl and I took a soccer ball, I replaced it in Kittl, and like the image mask went over it, or
Yeah.
like the masking feature where
Yep.
it gives you like that grunge text or that
It
grunge
clips it
layer.
clips it to the design, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, wow, this is really neat. And I think that is what's so amazing with Kittl that you can use for personalization templates
Hmm.
and just allowing like it only takes like 5 seconds to just like however long it takes you to type that, then you save it, you put it into your design for the personalization template. I think it just takes personalization to that next level and gives you those tools that other softwares just don't have, or
Mm.
they do have, but it's just really difficult to do on your own. And especially when you're a print on demand seller, you're getting, I mean, if you hit the Etsy algorithm right, you're going to be getting like 10 to 20 sales a day.
Yeah.
And doing that 10, 20 times, with other softwares, it's going to take you hours. When with Kittl, it's like, a few minutes, you have like, you earned like, $200 off your personalization items out of 10 minutes using Kittl. So that's, I guess, for me, like being a print on demand store owner and then also doing multiple things. And that's what a lot of my students are doing. A lot of my subscribers, they have full-time jobs, and doing
Yeah.
these personalization templates, plugging and playing names into the templates to kind of shorten your time the best you can. I think like Kittl just like it takes out all of like the hard work and it makes it
Mm.
a lot easier with those templates. So I really like that about Kittl and helping anyone who's, on this Coffee with Kittl or for my channel. So
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, and that's, a lot of designers, that kind of like have been in the design game for a while, maybe they don't wanna use templates, or they kinda harp on templates, like, "Hey, that's
mhm,
fine. You can use Kittl a completely different way, you can start from scratch." However, we have this in mind, exactly what you're saying, for things like personalization. Kittl's gonna be one of the easiest ways to do, because you don't have to open up your Illustrator file of 80 artboards that has to load for 5 minutes, or try to find the one that you need in the cloud. I'm not harping on Illustrator. It's great. We use it all the time. But now you can even have, we just released, I don't know if you saw, we just released a folder option, which sounds like such a
cool.
simple thing, but it definitely took us a little while to get right. But now, if you made that template, now you can put that template in a folder. You can label that folder editable Etsy mug design or whatever, and then in that folder you can have your editable template, your customized template, and then you could even duplicate it. I mean, I don't know if you necessarily need to save every single like edit. Maybe you do in case there's an issue, but I mean, you could just pop open the same one, change the
Yeah.
name, because you're not really changing, like, I mean, you could offer changing color and all that stuff, but you're kind of adding more time. So the
Yeah.
editable text, I think, is like where it's at, like the best you're not offering a full logo design here. Like,
Yeah.
just be careful. Don't try to make it super intense. But with Kittl, yeah, you could tally up, make folders for all of these, so your profile's super organized. Otherwise,
Mhm.
you're gonna have just mountains of pages to go through. But finally, we did we did the
Yeah.
folders to make it easy to find those customizable templates. So
Yeah.
that's a great point. Yeah, and the clipping mask, like you mentioned, we're working on more masking features that will be dropping hopefully soon. I know people are tired of me saying that. Just we got to ask for your patience. It just takes a while to get masking right. As simple as a thing that it is, it'll take you 1 second to do, but it takes us weeks to do.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for more masking to come out. And like you said, with the clipping mask, that was like when that happened, we just got tons of like, thank God, thank the world, like thank you for like putting clipping masks in, because for
Mhm.
that grunge retro t-shirt, like that's everything. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Um, well, Heather, this has been awesome. Like, this has been a lot of information for people to think about, maybe even replay through if they need to. Again, please, everyone, subscribe to Heather. I've got her channel down below. I'm going to let you kind of just talk through anything that you want to say, anything that's going on, anything coming up, whatever it is.
Yeah.
How can our audience kind of follow you a little bit more?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube at Heather Studio. I'm currently, well, I'm running webinars. They're free trainings at the end of December to January to really get people started with Etsy and print on demand. I'm doing a few webinars, just like PowerPoint slides and kind of talking through Etsy and print on demand. I started in 2021. So in January of 2021, and January is usually like the slowest season to start a print on demand business.
Okay.
And so I'm really excited to get people like fired up about 2023 and starting their own businesses in 2023. So
Yeah.
definitely sign up for the webinars, join me for my live, trainings. They're completely free. Just
Wow.
join me, bring a pen, pencil, maybe your notes phone app, and we're just going to go live. I'm going to do Q&As at the very end
Oh,
to,
nice.
like answer any questions. But yeah, I'm really excited for as we enter into the new year and seeing all, connecting with more students and getting to know more people who are excited to start print on demand businesses. So
Absolutely. Well, you heard it, everyone. Go follow Heather. Check out the things that she's going on, and maybe in 6 months or so, maybe we can do another call and see what's been happening in 2023. I think that would be
yeah,
really, really interesting, really cool. So we can set that up. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. Of course, don't forget to subscribe here to Kittl as well, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye, everyone.
see you guys.